any stories of what just happened, how you got here. Go of anything that you still need to do. And just do that ardas, set that intention. This next hour or so is our time for connection with the Sad Sangat and with Vaheguru. So we're going to start with the ardas and then we're going to go into Simran. We're going to chant the Guru Mantra. Vaheguru, Vaheguru. Guru Mantra hai jap home. When we chant that Guru Mantra, that Dhan Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave us, a sense of separation from Vaheguru, that home dissolves away. And we feel that presence of that ever-present Vaheguru. So, let's begin. Tude aage ardas hamari, jiyo pind sab tera. Tude aage ardas hamari, jiyo pind sab tera. Kaho nanak sab teri vadiyai, koi naam na jaane mera. Kaho nanak sab teri vadiyai, koi naam na jaane mera. Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru. So just a short introduction. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be talking about healing the mind and the body. And we're going to be exploring how do we do this through our understanding of Gurbani. And I have many titles in the world, but actually they're kind of irrelevant. What's important is what we're sharing today is lived experience. So starting with our own experience of mind and body trauma and how Maharaj, through their infinite compassion and through their grace, were able to show us a path into that healing. The other titles, I'm a coach, I'm a chaplain, many things, but none of that is of any use because Maharaj tells us we could read all the books, we can analyze, we can read books, but actually what matters is that experience that you have. So just a reminder, I probably talk, but hopefully there'll be some interaction from the Sangha as well. But just to keep that agreement that we release any judgment. So anything that I talk about here is not saying that this is the only way and this is the only interpretation of Gurbani. It's about saying this is my understanding of Apani, Buddha Jyoti. It's my experience, and hopefully from that someone will learn something, they will take something. So please take what resonates with you, please leave behind anything that doesn't resonate. To hold that confidentiality, obviously we're sharing personal things here, we are streaming, I don't mind that being shared, but obviously just being aware of that for each other. And if it's the case that we have questions at the end, maybe we can turn the camera off and we can share more openly. Listening, openly listening, not just listening so you can judge, not just listening so you can speak, but just being the empty vessel in the hope that we take something useful away, and sharing as honestly as we can. So I'm going to go straight into it, and I would like to say I'm going to be really quick and brief on this slide, but I do go on, so please tell me to be quiet, Benji, if I go on too much. So like I said, I'm going to share a little bit about my personal experience just to put everything into context. So Maharaj said, Dukkadaru Sukharogapaya. We all have a form of dukh, and it looks different for every single one of us here. We've all been through something, unless maybe you're very young, maybe you haven't got there yet, but that is a part of life. So for me, as I was growing up, my mum had and has bipolar, so we had mental health issues in the family, and what that meant was life could be quite disruptive. I never knew what I was going to get. Was I going to get a friendly hug? Was I going to get shouted at? And as I'm talking about this, it's important that we recognize what Maharaj tells us, that don't blame anybody else. So I'm not sharing this to say this was my mum's fault, or this was my baby's fault, or this was someone else's fault. There is no fault. It just, that is the life, that is the hukam that Maharaji gave us. But those situations affect us in some ways. So I had that situation. I experienced sexism from family member, Kuriya, Inuki Karna, kind of, I'm guessing other than kind of the younger generation, we've all experienced that to some extent, like you're kind of extra, you're vaddu if you're a girl. And I was a second born, so the first one was great, but the second one was kind of like, oh God, here's another girl that we have to have responsibility for, that we have to get married off. And I can understand a little bit where they were coming from in that generation. But that, obviously, that's going to affect you as well. I went to a Roman Catholic school, so I was one of the very few brown people in the school. So there was racism, there was bullying from other children, from other people. And there were other traumas which I'm not going to go into. There's children here, and we don't need to necessarily go into those traumas. But as women, we can imagine the different types of traumas that we might face within society, within our culture, and being disrespected in that way. boundaries being overstepped. And so what that translated, when I look back now, I can understand all those things created a certain type of thinking, a certain reaction in the body, a certain way of being. And as I'm talking, I don't want you to be thinking about flana. Yeah, that person went through that, or that person went through that. I don't even want you to be thinking about children or your parents. Just look at yourself as we're going through this, because this is what will help us. It's very difficult to change another person or to persuade another person. But what I found is really helpful for everybody around me is when I do that work, when I understand myself, when I recognize what I've been through, what I'm going through, how do I get through it, that's how we help other people. So please, when we're going through this, look at your own mind, look at your own situation, and apply whatever's being spoken about in that way. So for me, when I look back, that translated as survival mode. Nowadays we hear a lot about fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Have people heard about this? Because most people are hearing about survival mode, fight, flight, freeze. So this is something that happens to your nervous system when you feel a threat. You go into these certain types of reactions where you want to fight someone, you want to run away, or you just freeze, or this kind of a new thing that they've realized is another way that we react to somebody who's threatening towards us, is that we fawn or we please. So we become people pleasers, and that's, again, I didn't recognize any of this at the time, but I can say I went into that people pleasing mode, because if I didn't, I always felt like people were shouting at me and telling me off or things like that. So what, again, in retrospect, what I can see is going through those childhood experiences gave me a certain mindset of unworthiness, of I'm never good enough, that I have to be a certain way to please everybody around me. And for me, that led to chronic illness. So I can give you a long list of like fibromyalgia, suspected endometriosis, IBS, really excruciating period pain, gallstones, pancreatitis. So these are the things that I started to go through. This picture here, actually, I had just come out of hospital after 2 weeks, having acute pancreatitis and gallstones. So this was just before my brother-in-law's wedding. And I literally nil by mouth for 2 weeks, and I'd just come out. And what you might see on the outside, if you can see the picture, is in a worldly way, in a social media way, and I don't mind saying it, is someone who looks like everything's together, you know, my hair's done, the jewelry, the outfit. I was working in central London, my husband's lovely, even my mother-in-law's lovely, 2 children, 1 of each, car, holidays, everything, the whole package that you would expect that ticks the happiness box from society. But inside, I was falling apart at that moment. I'd had a breakdown in the hospital, and I was asking those questions, which is, why am I here? What is the point of life? Is this all it's meant to be about, that we chase and chase and chase, and then you still feel empty on the inside, and things start to fall apart? And that's where that daru comes in, right? That dukh was there internally, but that daru, that cure, that medicine was from that question, is this all there is? And sometimes in Christianity, they talk about the dark night of the soul. Sometimes you have to go through that hanera, you have to go through that darkness to realize that this life that you've been living has not been your life. It's been dictated by your experiences, by your Punjabi culture, by your Western culture. And so it's only when things fall apart sometimes that you get to ask that question, is this the life that I'm meant to be living? What is the point of it? Is there something more? And it was from that Maharaj blessed us with Sikhi, blessed us to slowly start working towards those answers. So Maharaj कहते ओमे दीरक रोग है दारू भी इस माहे कृपा करे जे आपनी ta gur ka sabat kamaye. So how is this useful to analyze, to see what happened to us and to make the links between what happened when we were younger or what happened in a traumatic experience and how we show up now, whether it's mental challenges, emotional or physical? Is that Maharaj tells us that Homme is this chronic disease. What is Homme? Sometimes we think of Homme as like, oh, it's arrogance. Homme isn't just arrogance. Homme is actually that state of separation from Vaheguru. That's that experience where we're disconnected, where we're not experiencing Vaheguru within ourselves. And to even talk about this concept is novel, because how many of us can say that we're having an experience of Vaheguru within our own life, within our own mind? You know, most of the time it's a theoretical concept, it's something we read about in Gurbani, but that state of Homme is not having that experience of Vaheguru. But by acknowledging that we're not having that experience, that we're disconnected in some way, that's when we find the cure. So by asking that question, by being in that dark night, by being in that dukh, that suffering, by asking that question, is this all there is? Why am I struggling? Why am I suffering? Why me? That dharu was in there, that medicine was in there, because then I can recognize, okay, this is who I'm not. I'm not those circumstances. I'm not my body. I'm not my illness. I'm not my trauma. What is Maharaj telling me that I am? And Maharaj tells us, Man tu jod sarupa hai, apna mool pechan, that you are the divine light of Vaheguru. And recognize that. So that's an instruction. It's not a theoretical understanding. It's not an analysis to say, oh yeah, I'm Jod Sarup. Maharaj is saying this is an instruction. Recognize you are that divine light. And the whole of the Guru Granth Sahib Ji is giving us the instructions as to how we start to do that. How do we start to experience that? And Maharaj Ji tells us here, Kirpa Kareje Apani, that Guru ka Sabat Kamaye. That through Kamaing that Shabad, and we'll get into it later, what is that Shabad? What is that Naam? How do you have that experience? Ultimately, Naam, Shabad is about that experience that you're having of Vaheguru inside of your own mind, that Jod Sarup. So this is where I got stuck, and this is where many people get stuck. When we hear about trauma, we do psychology, we go on courses, we watch YouTube videos on the Instagram, the TikTok, and we start to analyze, oh yeah, I'm like this because my mom did this to me, my dad did that to me, my teacher said this to me when I was really young. And that's a very Western psychology, Freudian concept of someone is to blame, this is someone's fault. And like we just shared, Maharaj says, don't blame anybody else, look at yourself instead. Whatever's happened has happened. And if you sit there and you say, okay, this is because of my ex, this is because of my parents, this is because of my culture, you're still stuck, you're a victim to life. And Maharaj hasn't given us Gurbani to be a victim to life. Nowhere in Gurbani does it say, be sad because of the situation you're in. Maharaj is always empowering us. Karmi apo apani. Your actions are your own. Ke mere ke dur. Ape beej ape hi khao. Now that's not a responsibility to say you're a bad person if you're suffering. It's to say responsibility. Cultivate your ability to respond to the situation. You have that power to transform if you walk this path of the Guru. So we can sit there and analyze as much as we want in our mind whose fault it is that we are the way that we are, that we're suffering, that we're dukhi. But actually Maharaj is saying you can go beyond that. You can go beyond your dukh. You can resolve this through this path. So when we're walking on this path of self-development, it's all about self-development. That's why it's called self-development. It's about these ideals that we've created through culture, whether it's Punjabi, whether it's Western culture, even if it's Sikhi culture, which is not Sikhi, but it's a culture that we as humans have attributed to it. To say that you're only good enough if you have that job, you have that degree, you have that marriage, the kids, the career, the health, the wealth, the body. You are who you are because of your trauma, because of your experiences. When we're looking at ourselves from self-development, we're just developing those identities more and more. We're creating even more and more homeland. We're creating this idea, and this is something that I went through at one point when I was in a lot of pain. My kids were very young at that time, and they were kids, right? So they would be loud, they would shout, they would scream, and I'd be like, no, you're not allowed to shout, you're not allowed to scream because mummy's nervous system, I can't take this. So I wouldn't let them shout and scream. And if my husband like even brushed past me in the kitchen, I was like, oh no, you can't touch me because I've got so much pain in my body. And everywhere I went, there was this story that followed me. About, oh no, I can't eat that, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. And it became this whole story, this whole identity about, I am this way because of what happened to me, because of my pain. And I was a victim to that, because I was looking into just this self-development world. What I wasn't recognizing was what lay beneath all of that. And what lies beneath all of these labels, all of these vichar, these thoughts, these analysis, is that deep state of peace, of bliss, of love, that Jod Sarup, that experience of Paramatma. So Guru Sahib is inviting us to go deeper. Yes, the trauma happened. I've forgotten the Bhakti, but it's in Sukhmani Sahib. It's something like Jo Hua So Hovad Pachan. Like whatever's happened has happened. Recognize that as hukam. You can't change the past. You can't be in control of the future. All that you can do is in this one breath. Tuk dam karari jo karaho, hajir hajur khudaya. And Kabir ji is telling us, even within this one breath, if you takai your mind, if you focus your mind, you can feel that presence of Vaheguru, hajir hajur khudaya, Vaheguru, Madhur. So the other way that we can deal with this is that connection to Vaheguru. And Benji and I were talking on the tube, on the train, on the way here. I hope you don't mind me sharing, it's not too personal. And one of the things Benji was saying is, I feel free, I feel liberated. That is mukti. Because of the practices Benji's been doing through her Simran, through coming into Sadh Sangat, that is what we're looking for. We're not looking for more stories to keep us restricted. We're looking to feel mukt in the world, where we can show up how we're meant to show up without all of these stories, without all of these restrictions. And so this is a path of true self-discovery, of true self-realization as that jewel. And I know that might not sound tangible at the moment, it might sound a bit airy-fairy, but we'll get into what does that experience look like. Hopefully Benji's willing to share a little bit later as well. So there was lots and lots of inspiring moments in this journey towards Sikhi, and obviously it's all Maharaji's Kirpa. And that Kirpa is not just on me, that Kirpa is raining down on every single person here. Sabse no Kirpa, Samale Sahi Sai. We just heard that in Rera Sai. Sabse no Kirpa. The Kirpa is on everyone. How do we know? Samale Sahi Sai. As long as this breath is coming in, this breath is going out, that means there's kirpa on every single person here, right? So that kirpa is always raining down, and the question to ask yourself is my cup facing up or is it upside down? Because as long as we're looking to blame others, as long as we're staying stuck in the story, our bowl is faced the other way and that kirpa is just flowing off, it's washing away. If this mind is full of blame, of hatred, of anger, that kirpa is washing off. But when we turn our bowl the other way, when we say, we do our ardas, we say, Maharaj, help me, Maharaj, show me the way, bring me into the Sadh Sangat, help me to jump your naam, show me that truth of who I am, that truth of who you are, show me that kirpa, then that bowl is the right way around and we start to receive that grace. And so one of those moments that I experienced as I was going deep into self-development, understanding the nervous system, trauma. I was on my organic green diet. I was eating like about 5 foods because I reacted to everything else. Trying every kind of different therapies, CBTs, all the different acronyms that you can think of. And at the same time, Maharaj was bringing us into Sikhi, and I was hearing a katha about Tan Guru Ram Das Ji. And it really affected me, it really touched me, it really transformed me. And the reason for that, for many reasons, but the main reason was that Guru Ram Das Ji, we're told, was an orphan, right? Their parents passed away. They were rejected by different family members to the point where they were selling things on the street to survive. And yet, they became the Guru, right? Where was the trauma there, right? If that was me, I'd be like, my parents died, I'm a poor orphan, everybody's rejected me, and I would have been a victim in that at that time. But for me, it was like, well, what is it that Guru Ram Das Ji knew that I didn't know? What is it that Guru Ram Das Ji was doing that I didn't know? And thankfully, I've been in a little bit of Sangat just to understand that, yes, we put Guru Sahib on a pedestal, and we should, but the Gurus came here to show us what we can do, not just to say Guru is up there and we can't do it. The reason they wrote Gurbani, the reason they encouraged Sadh Sangat was to show us that we are capable of those very same things. So that was a question in my mind. When I learned about the Bibiya and Veer Manu's jails who had their children cut piece to piece and put as hard around their necks, where was their trauma? Every day, I was trying to look for the exact ardas, I couldn't find it today. But every day they were doing this ardas saying, this day has gone in Charati Kala and give us more Charati Kala. And the blood was streaming of their children around their necks. Where was the trauma there? What were they accessing? How do I access that? And we all know the Sakya Guru Har Krishan Sahib, who was healing the sick. So that is an ingrained part of our Sikhi, that healing is possible. In fact, today I came across a shabad, and it was by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and it was talking about how Vaheguru has healed my child of smallpox. And I would encourage you to do that course for yourself. Go into your app, your Gurbani app, turn it to English, just type in healing, type in smallpox, and every time you are questioning something, you have a doubt about Gurbani, go into Sikhi to the Max, go into an app, write that word in, and find out, what does Maharaj say about this? What does Maharaj say about guilt? What does Maharaj say about blame? What does Maharaj say about healing? And you will find all those answers for every question that you've had. You will find those answers in Gurbani. So Maharaj reinforces that. Babaniya, Kahaniya, Put Saput Karin. We often just quote that one line, right? That one pankti. We say the stories of our ancestors make children into super children. But how? Like, we hear Gatha all the time on the stage. We have access to YouTube, thousands and millions of hours of Gatha. And yet sometimes we don't change, right? We feel inspired for a moment, but we don't transform. And it's really important that we look at the second pankti of that. Je Satguru Paave So Manalen Sei Karam Kare. Now, how? It's not just the story that we want to feel inspired by. What we want to take from that Sakhi is, what is Vaheguruji's hukam? What is it that they want us to do? And then act accordingly. Suniya, maniya. And so for me, this was not about judging myself and saying, oh, I'm not a good enough person, I'm not a good enough Sikh. This was about that possibility, that potential, that we have access to this. And if we are able, through Maharaj's Kirpa, through those Ardasa, through taking those actions, able to access that, we can do anything, right? So what is that hukam? What is that thing that comes up again and again and again? And I'm talking about my own experience here as well, that Maharaj is telling us to do. Eko naam hukam hai. Nanak Satguru Diya Bujhai Jiyo. Again and again, Maharaj is telling us this hukam, this instruction, this command is of Naam, is of Simran. Simaro, simar, simar, sukh pavo, kal kalesh tana mahi mitavo. By doing that Simran again and again and again, that conflict within the body will be erased. Where does the conflict in the body come from? That disease is through conflict, and that conflict starts within the mind. Only if there's conflict in the mind will there be conflict in the body. Only if there's conflict within will there be conflict outside. And we can prove that through Gurbani, because Maharaj says, Gara Sukha Vasya, Bara Sukha Paya, Goho Nanak, Guru Mantar, Diraraya. That when we embed that Guru Mantar, Vai Guru in our mind, Gara Sukha Vasya, we find that peace inside of ourselves. And when we find that peace inside of ourselves, Bara Sukha Paya, we will experience that peace outside as well. And Maharaj tells us again clearly, Saravaroga Okhadanam, that the cure, not just many a time, most of the time, when Maharaj is talking about rog, disease, they're talking about Homerog, this rog of separation from Paramatma. But here Maharaj is being even clearer. They said Saravaroga Okhadanam. All diseases, whether that's disease of the mind, whether that's disease of the body, whether it's things like infection, COVID, whatever it is, whether it's Homerog, that cure is that Naam, that cure is that connection, that experience of Vaheguru. If there are any questions as we're going on, please feel free to give me a break and just ask the questions as well. Thank you. So before we move on, I'm just going to ask you to contemplate for yourself, to make this practical. What is the story that you're holding on to? And you don't have to share it out loud, but just take a moment. What is that story that is of blame in your life? What is that story of shame in your life? What is that story of fear, of resentment in your life? And I'm not asking you to think about it to feel bad. It's the very opposite. I want you to think about that story, because by looking at it, by putting the light of Naam, the light of presence on it, we can start to dissolve it. Because we now know that that story is not true. That story is that man that is on this man for lifetimes. Janama Janamandi man is on this mind. Lifetimes upon lifetimes, we've been stuck in these scenarios, we've been stuck in this conditioning, we've been stuck through Karam with people in our lives. Sometimes we're the perpetrator, they're the victim. Sometimes it's the other way around. And unlike our understanding of some other dharmas, Maharaj is not saying, oh, that's your karma, and that's hukam, and you can't do anything about it. Maharaj is saying nothing else is going to work, but Naam is. And so the question we want to ask ourselves is, are we ready to be free? Are we ready to be liberated? Are we ready to do, and are we willing to do what we need to do to go beyond that story, that victimhood, that trauma, that the shackles on our mind, the shackles on our body? So we're just going to take a couple of minutes here, and we're going to do a little bit of Simran, because we're talking about Simran. The most important thing is the practice. We can know Gurbani Kant, which is a beautiful thing to do. We can have perfect Ucharan of Gurbani, which again is beautiful. We can do amazing Kirtan, beautiful Kirtan. All of those things are good. It's all Pala. But unless we are having that experience, we're able to bring our mind as we do that Kirtan, to bring our mind in when we're reading that Gurbani, to bring our mind in when we're doing that Simran, then it amounts to very little. Because this whole game of life is about the mind. Every day in Rega Sahib we say, Pei Parapat Manukh de Huriya, Gobind Milan ki, ye teri bariya. We talk about our purpose these days, right? What's my purpose? Why am I in this world? Every day Maharaj tells us our purpose is Gobind Milan ki. It's your turn, it's your body to meet Vaheguru. And so, if it's your turn to meet Vaheguru, if it's your turn in this lifetime to become a teacher, to become a doctor, you have a plan, right? You say, I'm going to go to uni, I'm going to do these studies, I'm going to lock in, as the kids say today. My daughter taught me that phrase. She hates when I say it. We're going to lock in, and we're going to study, we're going to get the results, we're going to get some work experience, we're going to get ourselves a job. That's my purpose, to be a doctor, engineer, to be an artist, to be whatever it is, an actor, an actress. Now, if Maharaj is telling this, your true purpose as a human being is to meet Vaheguru, to experience them, to have milab with them, what is your plan? Have we considered, how am I going to meet Vaheguru? You know, is it when I'm doing my nithanin, but I'm saying Hukam Rajayi Chalana, Nanak Likyana, and I'm actually not accepting Hukam because I'm like, why did this person say this? Why did that person do this? When will I get what I want? But we're reading Hukam Rajayi Chalana. Right? We're reading that Nirbhav, Nirvair, and actually, while we're reading that with our mouth, we're worried about what's going to happen to my children in the future, or we're in that very, or whatever that person did when we were 5 years old, which was many, many years ago. So this is not just about a giriya, a garam, an external action, it's all about the mind. And so as we do that simran, as we do that kirtan, as we read that Gurbani, it's about bringing our mind into that state of listening. Suniya, dukh, papaka, nas. By listening, that suffering, that separation dissolves away. So how do we do that? We have a saying in our house, and we say it in Sangat all the time, practice makes progress. That's why we do Naam Abhyas. That's why we do Simran Abhyas. Abhyas means practice. So when we practice something, we get good at it. If you want to learn a new Shabad, and you only practice once every 2 months, when there's a Rana Sabha, you're not going to do brilliantly at that. If you practice a little bit every day, you're going to get a little bit better every day. The compound effect, consistency. Now, if we want to practice connecting our mind to Vaheguru, to being present, to really being in that state of listening, we have to practice it. So Maharaj has given us that simran. So I invite everybody to close their eyes for a few minutes and sit comfortably. You don't want your body to be distracting you. So if you need the sahara of a wall, if you need to lean against something, move your legs, move your feet, please do so. And I'm just going to invite you to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And that's just helping us to relax our body before we start the simran. Even this body, Maharaj can har mandir, sarir hai, jnana ratan pargat hai. That this body is indeed a temple. It is Harida Mandir. Because it houses that divine light, that jyot of Paramatma. So as we relax the body, taking another deep inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, relax your body completely. So as we practice this practice of Simran, the purpose of it is to bring our mind away from all of those stories that we've been holding on to. Those fears, those worries, those judgments. And it's a really difficult thing to do. Most people do Simran, they give up because they say, I can't concentrate, I can't focus, I have too many thoughts. And this is the very medicine. Through this practice is what is going to help you to control your thoughts. Just like when you're ill, you will take medicine. The medicine is to make you better. If your mind is too busy, if you can't concentrate, then this Simran is the medicine for that busy mind. And as you practice day in, day out, whether it's 1 minute, 5 minutes, 20, 2 hours, that process of coming away from your vichar, your thought, your furna, and bringing your attention back to the sound, the sound of your voice as you chant Vai Guru. So we're going to try this. We're going to chant Vai, we're going to chant Guru, and when you chant Vai, I want you to listen to the sound of your voice. When you chant Guru, I want you to listen to the sound of your voice. Inevitably, you're going to get lots of thoughts as you're doing that. Your only job is to bring your attention, your dhyan, back to the sound of your voice. Dhyan mein dhyan mein. So it doesn't matter what thoughts you have, how many thoughts you have, all that matters is you bring your attention back again and again to the sound of the Guru. So our eyes closed, relax your body, and chant alongside. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Vaheguru, 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 people to put their hand up if you have thoughts. So we're all going to have thoughts. It's not straight away that you're going to chant Vaheguru and be fully present. But if you do a minute every day for a week, there might be 1 second at the first day that your mind is really listening. If you practice every day, by Friday, there might be 5 seconds where you're really listening. So this is a practice. By the end of the year, you might have 5 minutes where your mind is ekagar, where your mind is ekaman ekchit, where it's truly present. And the reason why that is important is because when we're present, whose presence is coming through? Vaheguru's presence. Because Man tu jot sarup hai apna mool bichan. You are that divine light. So when we're not in our own thoughts, when we're not in our homme, when we're not in those false belief systems, when we're not thinking about those negative things, the past, the future, the judgment, the fear, Beneath that is Vaheguru's presence. And how do you know you're experiencing Vaheguru's presence? You will know. Because you will experience a deep sense of peace, even if it's just for a second. And the more we practice that, the more we will start to experience that. It's not a theory, it's a practice. So we're going to go a little bit complicated, we're going to go a little bit deeper now, just so we can understand. Obviously, there's a lot more to this that we can fit into this hour and a half. But this is something that was mind-blowing for me. Every day we read Japji Sahib, right? What is the source of our suffering? So my hypothesis, if you like, my tested hypothesis, is it's those thoughts, right? So Maharaj is telling us that Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar is our problem. That Home is our disease. But how does it show up within us? Through our thoughts, right? Vichar mare, tare tare, ulte jun na ave. When we kill that vichar, when we kill that thought, then we're saved. So every day we're thinking the same thoughts. We're having that same emotional experience. And we react the same way. Like when my kids were younger, when they would do something like spill their water, I'd be like, why did you do that? You're so, clumsy. I'd get angry. I'd react by shouting at them. And then every night I'd be like, why did I do that? I don't want to be that kind of mum. I want to be kind and compassionate. And then the next day we'd go through the same cycle again because my thinking didn't change. And if you know about psychology, you know about self-development, you know about that subconscious mind where we have these patterns again and again. We're thinking the same thing every day. Every time you think a thought, let's say something difficult, a trauma happened to you. Let's say it was 10 years ago. Every time you think about that trauma, that thought, you will have an emotional, a chemical, hormonal reaction in your body, right? So if you think about something bad that really happened, your body will release cortisol and adrenaline. It will release the hormones of stress in your body. One time I was, Oji knows my favourite stories are about washing the dishes. One day I was standing there, I was washing the dishes, I was perfectly fine. And as I was washing the dishes, I remembered something that happened to me as a child. And it was a difficult memory. And then my child came round the corner and was like pulling on me, mummy, mummy, mummy. And I was like, Ki jai there. And I was really angry with them. And when I looked, I realized it had nothing to do with them. My mind had gone into a memory of the past. And so just by thinking that thought, by reliving that thought, my body had a reaction to that. If you think about going on a roller coaster, or you think about an exam that you have, you will feel that in your tummy if you think about it long enough, right? You will feel that reaction in your body. Equally, if you think about the best time of your life, I know for most of you it's having your children, or getting married, or getting your degree, or taking Amrit, whatever it is your moment of joy. If you think about that enough, you will feel that love in your heart. You will feel that joy in your body. And it's not just like an airy-fairy thing. That is a chemical reaction. Just by your thoughts alone, you can change your state of body. Now, how does this fit into trauma, and how does this fit into chronic illness, for example? When you're reliving that situation of your childhood or that traumatic event again and again and again, one, it's going to change the satbulan, it's going to change the balance of your mind. You're going to come more into that Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar, or you're going to come more into that Chinta. That chemical reaction, that adrenaline, that cortisol, then is going to be released in your body. Your nervous system is going to go into fight, flight. You're going to go into that stress response in your body. Now, if we're doing that again and again and again, what happens in that nervous system response is your immune system and your digestive system goes offline. That's what we call chronic disease. That's what was happening to me. And I didn't even realize it. I didn't think that I was thinking negative thoughts. I didn't think I was thinking about the past. But the story in my mind was constantly, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Why don't these people like me? I do everything for them. Why don't they understand? So I didn't link it to my childhood, but that voice was constantly there. When will I be enough? I'll be happy when I get this. Why did he do that to me? And so Maharaj talks about man bachkar. It starts from the mind, the thoughts of the mind, it becomes our words, our vachan, and then it becomes our karam, our physical actions. And we read about this every day in Japji Sahib. Unni papi akhananai. That good person and that bad good action and that bad action doesn't just come from akhana, from speaking it. Unni papi akhananahe karna. Again and again, we think it, we speak it, we feel it, we do it. The things that we're doing, thinking, feeling, acting upon, again and again and again, that is creating our likha. And our likha is our account that Vaheguru is going to be presented with at the end of our life, or even now, beach kal, right? That's another phrase in our house. My shortened version to the kids. It's just like beach kal. Like if you're going to argue, beach kal. My daughter came home. My daughter came home the other day. I was doing Simran. I kind of went into this really nice state of sun, of saj, and she kept coming in and disturbing me and waking me up, just asking me silly things. And then she was like, "Last night, I realized how it felt for you because I was asleep." And Baji came in and started asking me random questions. So then that's the phrase that I use, beach kal. Like you did that, it's come back on you. So those things that we're thinking, that we're feeling, that is creating that likha. That is cause and effect. That is a law, right? Gravity is a law. I throw something up on the Earth's atmosphere, it comes down. That is that law of karma we're talking about. But it's within our own mind. You know, this other karma we talk about, that's not in our bus, it's not in our power. But what we're thinking day to day, how we're speaking, what we're feeling, what we're doing, that is what Maharaj is showing us. You can have that in your power. To have that in your power, you need to have control of your mind, because the source is the mind. Ai panthi, sagal jamati, manajita, jagjit. So how do you win over your mind? How do you win over your world? Maharaj has given us this practice of Simran, of Gurbani Khoj, of Sad Sangat. We practice it. We say, why Guru, the mind goes off, we bring it back. We say, why Guru, the mind goes off, we bring it back. And then we strengthen. I have no muscle, I don't know why I'm doing that. We strengthen this muscle of the mind. You know, you go to the gym, you can't pick up the heaviest weight. But you start by doing reps. What are reps? Repetitions, again and again. You lift the weight, you lift the weight. By the end of those few months, you can pick up the heaviest weight. The mind is doing the same thing. It goes off, it's unconscious. It's asleep. Our mind is asleep. It's asleep in that dragon. It's asleep in this world, in Maya. How do we awaken this mind? Simmer, simmer, simmer guru apana, soya man jagaya. We awaken this mind by doing that simran again and again. And the answer's in there. Maharaj is telling us at the beginning of this Shabad, Pariye mat papa ke sang ohu tope na vekera. Wash your mind with this simran. It's not just the chanting. You start with the chanting, why Guru, and you're listening, gaviye, suniye, man rakhiye. You do it with love. But as you start to get to that place where you're not having thoughts anymore, but you're having vidle, very few thoughts, that is when you start to experience that peace. That's where that ishnan is happening of the mind. Manatovo Shabadana. When you connect to that Shabad, that mind is being washed. Those subconscious belief systems, that negative thinking, that, what's it called?
ants. Automatic negative thoughts, those garam we talk about, right? The anger problems, the whatever it is, whatever you've labeled yourself as, or other people have labeled yourself as, you're a krodhi person, you're a kammi person. As you do this practice, that mind starts to get washed, it starts to get cleansed by Guruji's kirpa, in their presence, in their hazuri. And when you come back from that simran, you come back as a different person. You come back as the person you're meant to be. Never in a million years did I think that I'd be sitting here sharing any of this. Because to me, I was unworthy, I was pointless, I was shy. But that's what Maharaji's kirpa does. And like we said at the beginning, that kirpa is on everybody. We just need to be willing to receive it. And so that voice of the mind is not your voice. That voice that tells you you're not good enough. That voice that tells you other people are not good enough. That creates chitta, that creates fikr, that creates ahankar. That doesn't belong to you. That belongs to the panch chor. Is dehi andar panch chor vasai. Kaam, krodh, lobh, moh, ahankara. Amrit loote, man mukh nahi bujhe, koi na sune. These panch chor are in this body, and they are constantly feeding us these thoughts, the desires, not just the calm as we understand it, but even the eggless cakes and the handbags and the I need life to be different to what it is right now. I'll be happy when I get X, Y, Z, and I always share this kind of joke and this question, which is, how long were you happy when you finished school? A little while, but then it was about getting a job. How long were you happy when you got your first job? And the joking part is, how long were you happy after you got married? But some people are like, yeah, I'm still happy, and that's fine. But you know, the desires are always moving, right? I want this. That is that calm, it never ends. If we get what we want, then it turns into greed, lobh, right? We want more, we want more, we want more. Then it turns into more, this is mine, mera. Maharaj ki kande, mera mujh mein kich nahi, jo kich hai, so tera. It's all yours, by you. I told my daughter that when she was young. I was like, no, the lega is not yours or Baji's, it's by Guru's. And then when she got older, she started wearing my hoodies. And I was like, that's my hoodie. She's like, no, mera mujh mein kich nahi. So you have to accept it both ways, right? And then it turns into ego. This is me, this is mine. What happens if you lose your job? What happens if you lose your money? What happens if you get divorced? What happens if something unexpected happens and you built your identity on that thing? Those panch chors speak, they shout, they scream, they tell you that you're not enough. But this is not your voice, this is not you. This is the panch chor that Maharaji has been warning us about. And what happens when you don't get what you want? The anger comes, the krodh comes, the anxiety comes. Beneath this voice in our head, that is not you, is that Jyotsuru, is the voice of Sat, Santokh, Daya, Nimrata, Pyar, that voice of peace, of love, of contentment. That is an experience, I can promise you. Do that. Make that ardas again and again every day. Ask for that sadh sangat, ask for that simran, ask for that khoj of Gurbani, and it will happen. Why? Because Maharaj says, Jo mange Thakur apne ke, soi, they will give you it, but what have we been asking for? I hope my bachcha's okay, I hope my husband, my wife's okay, I hope I get this job, I hope I get this holiday. That's what we're asking for, and deta de lende tak pahe. Juga jugantar khai, or cheezaं mili jandiyan, si khai jande, but it's never enough. That book never goes. And then there's another line that we have to cross, and then we're dissatisfied, we're suffering again. And so I'm not really going to go into this, it's quite complicated, but just in terms of that, how do you heal that trauma of the mind and the body? One is recognizing that home, recognizing that that's not you, that that's the Panchchor. It's recognizing that Maharaj has given us such a simple practice. This is the easiest path. Sikhi is the easiest path. You know why? Maharaj is not saying you have to stand on one leg and do yoga. Maharaj is not saying you have to go to Tirath. Tirath na ban jao, Tirath naam hai. Naam is that Tirath. What do we need to do? Gaviye, suniye, man rakhiye. Chant that name of Vaheguru. Praise Vaheguru. Listen, teach your mind to listen. And that love will well up within you. It's the easiest path. It's not complicated. Yes, it can be difficult. Akhir, oka, sajjana. But when you fall in love with that practice, when you start to feel that surge, that anand from it, then you fall in love with it. Then nothing else will meet that. We've tried, haven't we, Benji? We've tried everything. We've tried all the self-development. We've tried everything. But once you get that experience, even if it's just a drop of surge, just a drop of peace, you know that there's nothing else. You know this is the solution. And the question that I leave you with is there anything that Vaheguru can't do? There's nothing Vaheguru can't do. If Vaheguru created the world, if Vaheguru perfectly preserved you within the mother's womb, if Vaheguru perfectly put the sun so you're not freezing or you're not burning to death, and they made gravity so that you're not floating away or crawling on the floor, that they made the seasons perfectly to give us food, how can they make a mistake with you? They can't. You are Jyot Sarup. Vaheguru made you perfectly. They've even given you the perfect circumstances, the perfect dukh to bring you as a bahana back home, because you did that ardas. You did that ardas in the mother's womb. You do that ardas every day. Maharaj, bring me closer to you. And Maharaj is like, I'm giving you everything you want, but you keep forgetting me in the Netflix and the holiday and the Tesla or whatever it is. So maybe now I give you what you really want. I give you that dukh. I give you that trauma. I give you those triggers, because now you're going to look for me in that. Diva tera ek naam, dukh vich paaya te. That diva is that naam, that tel is the dukh, and that as you burn that light, it soaks up, it burns up that dukh. So this is the practice. This is the practice that through Maharaj's Kirpa has healed this body, that has healed this mind. And it's doing it not just for me, for so many of our Sangha. And maaf karna, you don't have to be Amritari to jap naam. You can chant, you can chant Ram, you can chant Allah, you can chant Yahweh. Vaheguru is within everybody. Sab mein jyot, jyot hai so. So if that jyot is within you, then that means you can connect to it. That Amrit is important, don't get me wrong. It's a part of the journey, but that will come. But start now. Connect with Guru Bani now. Come into Sadh Sangat now, and start chanting that name now. That is how we make this Jivan suffer. That's all there is. The rest is just false. And as you start to do that, life becomes beautiful. So we're going to finish off with that practice of Simran. The Simran is about losing yourself. Aap gavaiye, ta shah paiye, aur kaisi chaddarai. So that trauma is about holding on to that identity of what happened to me, why I am the way that I am. This is about becoming no one, no thing, nowhere, no time, nobody. Aap gavaiye. In that practice, when you lose your vichar, when you lose your thoughts, you lose the past, the present, you lose the future, you lose the doubt, you lose the judgment, you lose the fear. What's left is nothing. And when you become nothing, that's when you meet Vaheguru. That's when you find everything. So let's do the practice. It's all in the doing. So again, I invite you to sit comfortably, because if we're not comfortable, then we're going to start chanting and your foot's going to go to sleep like mine is right now. or your back's going to start hurting. So be comfortable. Gaviya. We're going to practice that praise of Paramatma, the one that created, the one that sustains, the one that rains down that kirpa on every single one of us. Gaviya. But it's no point just chanting with your mouth. We also need to be present. We need to be listening. So, Suniya, as you chant, listen. As you chant, listen. Bring your mind back again and again. Gaviya, Suniya, Manarakhya. Keep that love for the beloved in your heart and mind. So I'm going to chant. As you chant Vaya, listen. As you chant Guru, listen. Keep your mind present and do it with that love, that loving desire to meet your beloved, your true mother, your true father. Our Why Guru, 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 why
Yesu, Shabbat Guru, Surit Pun Chela. To make our Surti, our awareness, the servant of the Shabbat. Tun Met Dhyan Met. We're going to put our attention, our Dhyan on the Tun, on the sound. Just notice any difference in your mind, in your body. Hirkar Meso Harijan Pyare Satguru Tumhare Kaj Sawar. When this mind becomes stable and it sits in its true note, Sajka, Nijka, Hirkar. When our mind becomes the servant of Hari, Harijan, then Sadhguru themselves resolves all of our affairs. Sadhguru Tumhare Aaj Sawar. When this mind embeds the Guru Mantra, experiences peace in its truth, and that peace is experienced external as well. Gara Sukha Seva, Vara Sukha Maya, Goho Nana, Guru Mantra, Viralaya. So as a Sangha, do that Radas, that Nindi, that Jodhari, to Vaheguru Parmeshwar, to our beloved, Bintu Dapur, Jamangana, Sthir Dukha Ke Dukh, Deho Naam Santokiya, Uttare Manaki. Don't let me ask for anything other than your love. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So many Abhidya Bhagwan Kami, please forgive any mistakes. Angie, if she wants to share anything. And then if anybody wants to stay back and you've got any questions, we can answer them.
I suppose I was going to ask if there were any questions. Should we stop?
Angie, so we're going to say Fateh to online, whoever's watching. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.